Good morning, everyone. We welcome our folks who are joining us via Zoom. What a beautiful day God has prepared for us once again here at Hayshire UCC. It is great to gather with you all in worship this morning, and our candles will be lit in just a moment to remind us of Christ's presence among us. We remember that Jesus said, "Where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there with you." And today we do come together in person from all corners of our area through video and phone, and of course here in our beautiful sanctuary. We gather as one body of Christ. And whenever we do come together as the family and friends of Hayshire, we hope that this is a time and a place to rest and to encounter God within our midst. So a couple of announcements that I have this morning. I know that many of you were here in person and via Zoom yesterday for a wonderful celebration of life service for Bill Kleindenst. It was a great turnout. Our sanctuary was full. So it was a beautiful day. If you didn't get a chance to be here and would still like to see it and you have computer access, Ethan has already uploaded a copy of the video to our YouTube page, and you can just go to YouTube and search for Hayshire Church, or if you're on Facebook, it is posted on our Facebook page, a link that you can click and go right to the video, so you can watch that. It was one of our longer services, but it was beautiful. In the back of your bulletin, there's a few announcements that I'm not going to really get into detail this morning, one of which, of course, is Messy Church coming up on the 26th. We're continuing the Vineyard series. Glenn's waving at me. You want to say something?
Yes, quickly.
Okay, quickly, he says. Ethan, switch over microphone.
Yes, just a reminder, it's 4 to 6 next Sunday. I'm telling people to maybe bring their swimsuit or something like that, because there's a good chance you might get wet. I have something that I'm going to do that is going to be, it'll be one for wet people, one for dry people, but it's a lot more fun when it's wet.
Okay. All right. So next Sunday's Messy Church might be a little wet, so come prepared for that. Sounds very intriguing and fun. All right, so now you've heard Messy Church next Sunday, 4 to 6, with an interesting activity planned. Also in the back of the bulletin, you'll see mention of that 2-day session for Healthy Steps for Older Adults that's coming up, and it gives you information on how you can register. It is a free course, and we have hosted them here before from York County Area Agency on Aging, and the sessions are always wonderful, and they have a great turnout. So if you're thinking about it, not sure, I'll tell you it's worth coming. So if it fits into your schedule, do that. Also, there's information about the diaper drive and extras, as well as the Dresses for Freedom collection to benefit Sparrow House. And more information is out on our bulletin board. So, and if you have any questions about those 2 particular functions, you can check in with Miss Barb Crump. She'll give you extra details if you have any questions. Also, a quick reminder in the back of the bulletin is the information about Ken Durone's birthday. A week from tomorrow, on the 27th, Ken will be 100. So this is a mega birthday. Not many times do we get to celebrate this with somebody, so we want to make sure we take full advantage. Ways that you can do that: send him a card. So let's just shower him with all the cards that we can get there. His address is either in the new photo directory or it is back on our bulletin board. There's some address tags, or you can just send it in care of Spirit Trust Lutheran at Kelly Drive, and he will get the card. They will make sure of it. And also, he gets to go to one of his favorite things, and that is baseball at the Revs on Saturday the 26th. So Deb and Don have said if you are at the game too, stop and see him and wish him happy birthday. And then if you don't do either of those two things, or even if you do those two things, you can still come out and join him for cake on his actual birthday. So he's got quite the weekend planned of celebrating himself, and we're going to help make sure it is memorable. So hopefully you'll be able to join him for some of those. Remember, when you go, though, to Kelly Drive, like all of our care facilities, you must be masked when you go into the building. They will stop you at the front desk. You have to fill out a little questionnaire about your health thing, and they will do a temp check. And then, once you pass, they will send you to the room. And then you can hang out with Ken for a while, have some cake, and just enjoy good company with friends and a great guy who's celebrating a birthday. So hope to see you there. Ken loves us all, misses us desperately, hasn't been able to be here for a few years. And so we periodically get to see him when Deb and Don are able to help him get here. And so I know that to see each of us will mean an awful lot to him for that birthday. Other announcements that we have, I know Miss Joanne has one.
Good morning. You probably have all seen the Strengthen the Church offering envelope in your bulletin today. This is the day that we are celebrating Strengthen the Church. This is one of the 5 special offerings to the national conference that we give, that we participate in each year. So, whatever your heart guides you on, fill out or complete the envelope with your name on the back and fill it as much as you can. I have a poem here that I'm going to read that I think expresses our need for this pretty well. It's called Together by Karen George A. Thompson. We walk side by side, people of faith, boldly building new communities, connected by Spirit's fire, balancing bounty and need with flourish, committed to the body of Christ, together. We are the gift, the presence of God revealed, reflected in the beauty of all we are, at one across the miles of our differences. We embrace unity in our diversity, the church as one, impacting the world around us together. We, like trees firmly planted, blossom and bloom, courageously changing lives. We nurture each other's spirits, needing each other, learning from each other together. We breathe love, visiting the possibilities, new churches revitalized, worship communities, developing new leaders, providing for our neighbors in crisis. We are evidence of the church in action, together. We are miracles, insightful and creative, Spirit-inspired, generosity-filled, children of love and life, giving from the abundance of who we are, giving to build the whole church, giving to strengthen the church together. We emanate the spirit of Pentecost, extending extravagant welcome with arms outstretched. We heal, touching each other's lives and grace, tearing down walls and building bridges, erasing borders and boundaries. We are the church, growing stronger together. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any announcements from home?
Nothing here.
Okay, I don't hear any announcements from our folks at home. Are there any other announcements here in our sanctuary? Today, June 19th, is a very busy day on our calendar for federal things, or national things, I guess you could say. Today, June 19th, is a celebration that is now a fairly newly dubbed federal holiday called Juneteenth. I have to admit, I didn't know a lot about this. Lainey sent me some information that she had received from colleagues at Hood College, and so I thought I would share it with you today so that we all have a bit of information as to why this day is important. So per Tammy Simpson, the VP of Community and Inclusivity at Hood College, she writes that dubbed Juneteenth, this celebration began as a day of remembrance and reassurance with a focus on education, self-improvement, and prayer. As a newly freed black families migrated north from Texas, they brought with them the Juneteenth tradition. The holiday gained prominence during the civil rights marches of the 1950s and 60s, and with the recent rise of the Black Lives Matter movements, Juneteenth is now a household name and has officially been recognized as a federal holiday by President Biden as recently as 2021. But that was not the beginning of this momentous occasion. If you remember your U.S. history, you will recall that President Lincoln wrote and presented the preliminary version of the Emancipation Proclamation, or EP, as it is easier called, on September 22nd, 1862, after the Battle of Antietam. On January 1st in 1863, the final and the official version of the proclamation was issued, though as historians point out, it did not at that moment free a single slave, because it applied only to those sections in revolt against the U.S. David Hine, also from Hood College, shares. As federal armies advanced, the proclamation was enforced. It was made effective. Texas was simply the slave state in the revolt that was furthest removed from federal control. So it took a few additional years and finally came to be on June 19th of 1865, when Union troops entered Galveston, Texas, and liberated the last enslaved African Americans. It took another couple of days for the slaves to be liberated in Houston and Austin. And while the slave-holding states of Kentucky and Delaware, slaves were not freed until the 13th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution was adopted in December of 1865. And perhaps most surprising, the Choctaw Indians did not free their enslaved African Americans until 1866. So many African Americans today view Juneteenth as their Independence Day, and as such, it is a day of celebration and relaxation. On this June 19th, may we each take time to pause and reflect upon the joys and costs of freedom that we have received, and may we join our efforts together to ensure that no one is ever enslaved again. So that's one thing that today is happening on the calendar. The other is Father's Day. Today is that day that we set aside to remember and celebrate many of the men and some women in our lives who have fathered us in so many different ways. But Father's Day is not just a celebration. For some, it is a reminder of the heartbreak that they have encountered in life. Within our communities of faith, we hope that those who did not have positive or physically present father figures in their lives are able to find someone who is able to help fill that void, heal the wounds, and be a positive role model for the path forward. So today, and all its inclusive day, it's a day for celebrating, for remembering, and for mourning. So today we celebrate the men and women who have helped to give us life, especially those who receive the gift of a child after struggle with infertility for themselves and their partner and spouse, to joyfully find themselves now expectant fathers of a miracle, a rainbow baby. For the men and women who have nurtured and raised us throughout our lives, specifically the natural and biological fathers, single fathers, adoptive and foster dads, uncles, grandfathers, godfathers, teachers, coaches, and yes, even friends. We remember and honor those who made the tough decision to give up their child or children for adoption or signed over custody to a family member in order that their child or children would have a good life, a better life than they could provide for them. For those that made the decision not to have children at all of their own due to life circumstances, health conditions, or just personal choice. We also mourn with those men who yearn to be fathers but were not blessed with children. Those who have lost children through miscarriages, illness, or accidents throughout the years. Who are distanced from their children due to various reasons. And for the children who never knew the love of a father or a father-like nurturing person in their lives. So today we ask for God's blessing upon all of those who accept the challenge and gift of fatherhood, care and healing for those who continue to mourn their losses, and hope for those who are taking steps and actions to become fathers in any and every form. May each father feel supported by their families, friends, and community on this day and every day. Amen. So friends, as we enter into this time of worship together, remember that no matter who you are, where you've come from in the week past, or where you're headed in the week to come, for the next 40 minutes or so, you are home. So let us prepare our hearts and souls for worship this morning.
As the deep calls to the deep in thundering waves of faith and steadfast love, so we stand on the mountain with Elijah, feeling billowing waves of God's power flowing over and through us. Set aside your enemies, the people, thoughts, time, and challenges that separate you from knowing God's love. Shout praise in his name. The geography of sin is a waterless waste, but God gives springs of living water, streams of justice and mercy splashing into the wilderness from the mountain of God. Let us drink deeply of Christ. Let us confess our sins. Holy One, God Most High, grant us faith to confess our sins and seek your mercy. There are barren places in our lives where we have wandered far from you. We have listened to voices that distracted us from your call. We have submitted to powers competing for our loyalty to you. We have not taken the hand you offer to lead us out of God-forsakenness and into your holy ways. God, our Savior, forgive us. Quench our thirst through you, rock of our salvation. And let your love well up in us, eternal life. Speak tenderly to us your presence. Feed us with your word. Deliver us from evil. Let us enter into the kingdom and send out to serve you by the power of the Holy Spirit. Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. The steadfast love of God is with you, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Whether we turn away or doubt, whether we follow timidly or joyfully, we are loved and forgiven in Christ. Thanks be to God.
Would our kids come up and join me, please? Come on up here. Come all the way up. Come on up here this time. We're going to get up here on the red carpet, okay? There we go. How you doing? Good? Leilani's always got that thumb. What's up, Miss Leilani?
I know something different about today. The other day, that was white.
That is right. You are very observant. Yes, something very different today is that we've had our paraments were white, and now what color are they?
Green.
Green. Do you remember what green stands for in our church time? What did Miss Lisa tell you? Not Christmas. We're a little far from Christmas. What do you think?
We're celebrating Gigi Paul.
We did celebrate Gigi Paul, yes. We did that yesterday. And Gigi Paul loves all sorts of things for creation and life and gardens, and the green kind of reminds us of all of that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But green in our church time is what we call ordinary time. It's a very long part of our church year, and we learn all sorts of different stories about Jesus' ministry. So today, though, we're talking about spending time with God. So I want to ask you a question. Everybody has a happy place. I want you to think about what your happy place is. Where is your happy place? Is it real or make-believe?
Real.
Real, okay. Is yours real too?
Yeah.
What do you think, Des? Is it a real one? Yeah? Okay. Now that you have an idea of that happy place in your mind, what does it look like? Where is it? Where's your happy place, Georgia?
Hawaii.
Hawaii. Ooh. Wow. I was just going to say a beach, but Hawaii, okay. I'm with you. Where's our happy place? Or maybe it's easier to say, what do you do there? Or who's there with you?
My family.
Your family. That's a good one. What about you, Leilani?
The park, the beach,
The park and the beach and
and being with my mom.
being with your mom. So you got a lot of happy places and people to be with. Nice. Desi, what's your happy place?
It's somewhere downstairs
Downstairs.
in my house.
In your house? Okay. Does it have a bed? Yeah. I would think that might be a happy place. What else?
The beach.
Ooh, beach is always a great place.
I like the beach a lot.
Mm-hmm. So happy places are usually where we can also find God, because God is in our happiness, right? Yes, Miss Georgia.
Heaven.
Heaven. That is also a good happy place to think about. Heaven. And that's where Gigi Pa is right now, right? Yeah. And he's keeping a close eye on you and everybody else. All of us here, he's keeping a close eye on. So sometimes, though, people can say that our church is also a happy place because it's a safe place to be. It's a place where we can come together and we can sing, we can be happy, we can cry if we need to, we can learn about God, and the worries of the world just kind of fall away while we're here. What's up?
My nana thinks that I have holes in the phone.
Uh-oh.
It's all over me.
Uh-oh. Well, we'll have to get you something for your itchies. She might have poison, she thinks. And that's what Nana says, so She's got a little itchies going on. Well, that's not a happy thing, but okay. In this happy place, we can take care of even those things. So happy places, time with God, and just a little bit time apart where we can just forget about all the craziness that's going on in the world. That's what we're talking about today. I like to go to my happy place. Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, there's something else different. The tree's not there.
The tree is not there. You're right. The tree disappeared. There's a lot of things that change in our church. So it's good that you're noticing. Miss Georgia.
My room is my happy place.
Yeah, your room's your happy place? Because it's a place you can go and just be yourself, huh? Don't have to worry about anything there.
Yeah.
And that's good.
And my favorite part about my room is like because it's kind of like a Monet bed.
A Monet bedroom.
No, a Monet bedroom.
Okay. Wow.
It has like a sea color, but like teal.
Very pretty. Teal colored.
And I have this picture that has the pink, teal, and pink, just purple, pink, teal.
Purple, pink, and teal, so mermaid type, huh? Very cool. Let's do a quick prayer, all right? God, we thank you for helping us create happy places. Places where we can go and feel safe and find joy and be creative and just rest with you and those that we love. Whether it's at home, whether it's on a beach, whether it's in a park. We thank you for the happy places in our lives and that you are with us. Ask your blessing on these children, their families, and each of us that are lucky enough to grow with them. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much for coming up and talking to me about happy places today. All right, hope you get to spend time in yours very soon.
And also, we get a sanctuary, which we learn about God up in my school.
You do? Well, that's pretty cool. Well, now you got two. You got one here also.
Excuse me. Please join me in the prayer for illumination. Holy, holy, holy one, your wonderful words feed us. The word feeds us, and the Spirit gives us life. Grant our ears an appetite for hearing you, and our spirit's strength for loving you. Amen. Today's scripture reading is from 1 Kings 19, 5 through 16. Then he lay down under the broom tree and fell asleep. Suddenly an angel touched him and said to him, "Get up and eat." He looked, and there at his head was cake baked on hot stones and a jar of water. He ate and drank and lay down again. The angel of the Lord came a second time, touched him and said, "Get up and eat, otherwise the journey will be too much for you." He got up and ate and drank. Then he went in strength of the foods for 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the Mount of God. At that place he came to a cave and spent the night there. Then the word of the Lord came to him, saying, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He answered, "I have been very zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the Israelites have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they are seeking my life to take it away." He said, "Go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by." Now there was a great wind, so strong that it was splitting mountains and breaking rocks in pieces before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a sound of sheer silence. When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. Then there came a voice to him that said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He answered, "I have been very zealous for you, Lord, the God of hosts, for the Israelites have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword, and I alone am left, and they are seeking my life to take it away." Then the Lord said to him, "Go, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus. When you arrive, you shall anoint Hazael as king of Aram. Also, you shall anoint Jehu, son of Nimshi, as king over Israel. And you shall anoint Elisha, son of Shaphat of Abel Melohah, as prophet in your place."
And our gospel reading this morning comes to us from the book of Luke, chapter 8. Then they arrived at the country of the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee. As they stepped out on the land, a man of the city who had demons met him. With a long time he had worn no clothes, and he did not live in a house, but in the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he fell down before him and shouted at the top of his voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High? I beg you, do not torment me." For Jesus had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. For many times it had seized him, and he was kept underground and bound with chains and shackles. But he would break the bonds, be driven by the demon into the wild. Jesus then asked him, "What is your name?" He said, "Legion," for many demons had entered him. They begged him not to order them to go back into the abyss. Now there on a hillside a large herd of swine was feeding, and the demons begged Jesus to let them enter these. So he gave them permission. Then the demons came out of the man and entered the swine, and the herd rushed down the steep bank and into the lake and was drowned. When the swineherd saw what had happened, they ran off and told it in the city and in the country. Then people came out to see what had happened. And when they came to Jesus, they found the man with him whom the demons had gone and were sitting at Jesus' feet, clothed and in his right mind. And they were afraid. Those who had seen it and told them how the one who had been possessed by demons had been healed. Then all the people of the surrounding country of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave them, for they were seized with great fear. So he got into the boat and he returned. The man from whom the demons had gone begged that he might be with them, but Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return to your home and declare how much God has done for you." So he went away, proclaiming throughout the city how much Jesus had done for him. Here ends our readings this morning. Thanks be to God. So I ask each of you, similar to what I was asking the kids about, where do you find and feel or experience God? A little bit different than happy place, but hopefully not too much. Where do you find, feel, or experience God in your life? When you used to snorkel, yeah. What a beautiful world it is down there. Okay, what else? In the woods. Near water. Yes, definitely at the beach. In the mountains. Anybody say in thunderstorms? The heavy rains, winds. How about the calm after a storm? Or sunrises and sunsets? Do we ever find God in those momentous times in our lives? You know, like the birth of a baby, a marriage, or the death of a loved one. Maybe we find God when someone appears at just that time that you needed help the most, or something happens that prevents you from being in a particular place at a given time, and thus avoiding danger, physical or emotional harm, or even death. In our 1 Kings text, we hear God tell Elijah to go and stand on the mountain before the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by. Then there's a great wind, so strong that it is splitting mountains and breaking rocks in pieces before the Lord. Now, I can't imagine a wind that strong, but wow. And then after that, an earthquake. And then after the earthquake, a fire. But, we're told, the Lord was not in any of those things, those mighty acts. And finally, then, the sound of sheer silence comes. And this is where Elijah finds and speaks with God. It's much easier to see God in these mighty, awe-inspiring, even fear-inducing acts of nature than it is for the majority of us to encounter God in sheer silence. The noisy, action-packed, mighty acts leave little room for other voices to take over. Where periods of sheer silence allow our monkey brains to seize control, or at least attempt to distract us and lead us astray from our intention to spend time with God, with all of those whispers of false importance and urgency. Many people, myself included, will tell you and state that it's difficult at times to enter into these places of silence, seeking to spend time in God's presence. We long for it. We yearn to find peace and quiet, rest and relaxation. But the world around us and our own minds often work against us. It takes a lot of intentionality, of practice and focus, and the willingness and strength to let go of the present world and all of the demands that are on us and that are at any given moment, and transfer all of that focus and intention to entering a space where we can find God. And then after fighting hard to quiet our minds and push everything else away so that we are finally able to make it into that space, sometimes the sound of silence, the emptiness, is all that waits to greet us, not God's presence. Or is it? Maybe just the time of silence, a time of no distractions, is God's way of providing us a safe place to rest. Maybe being able to see, feel, and hear God's presence in words is something we must learn to do. And only through doing the hard work of getting ourselves to these places and moments of silence, of potential emptiness, can we offer ourselves to God and give that the space for us to connect. It does get easier to enter into such spaces and time with practice. And God's voice and presence can become more clear to us. So clear, in fact, that even in the midst of chaos and the cacophony of voices that the world tries to inundate us with and drown out God's desire to heal us and restore us to our birthright, our true identity of God's own, even in those situations, we can still see, hear, and feel God's presence and desire for us. The rewards for entering and dwelling in God's presence are endless. When individuals allow themselves to enter into God's presence and dwell there, lives are transformed and restored. Healing is holistic, mind, body, spirit, and relationships. Here in God's presence, one can discover and reconnect with their true identity, the one that was given to us before we were even born, as one of God's beloved children. Time spent in God's presence offers release from the demons that seek to steal our identity, to co-opt our energies and resources, and hold us prisoner in this world. In God's presence, it is easier to recognize that the impossible is truly possible. Freedom from all forms of oppression is offered. One can find and live in peace, contentment, true happiness, and love. Richard Schaefer Jr. reminds us that when we confront the presence of God in all the confusions of our lives, we come face to face with a problem. While accepting the healing and salvation of Christ may seem logical from a point of view of faith, Our human instinct sometimes drives us in different directions. We often resist change, no matter how beneficial it is or how much we even yearn for it. And we flee to the familiar, living a life that makes no sense from a perspective of faith. But maybe there is where the rub is. Faith. Faith is something that is hard to nail down. It's kind of like putting Jell-O on a wall. It'll stick a little bit, but eventually it's going to go. We can express a belief and a love for Jesus, but faith requires more than that. It means being and dwelling in God's presence. That requires more. It requires us to be willing to take risks, to step out into the unknown, trusting that God has us, that Jesus will not lead us astray, and that the Spirit will be there with us every step of the way. However, what faith does not offer is a guarantee for the immediate time that everything will be okay. We will still stumble, fall, and yes, even suffer. Faith does promise and offers the big okay for the future, our end goal. So I get why some folks can recognize the benefits, the potential transformation and joy that entering God's presence will bring them. And I also totally understand their hesitation and reluctance to committing themselves to actually entering God's presence and following God's direction in their lives. They will find comfort, peace, contentment, and happiness in God's presence. They will find that they have less to worry about because the majority of the world's opinions and demands won't have control of them anymore, and they don't matter. But God will also expect something in return. They will be called to go and do, to share their experiences. For some, in their immediate settings of family, friends, school, work, hobbies, and groups. And then for others, they will be sent into the vast unknown of territory, of place, maybe even leaving everything comforting and reassuring behind and venturing out on their own to answer that call with only the companionship and guidance of the Spirit and God's promise that it will all work out in the end to rely on. When we look at our Luke 8 story, we see that even Jesus didn't have it easy. After healing that demoniac, restoring him to a wholeness of life where he was no longer mentally tortured, where he was bodily strong once more, and he could re-enter that community and his family household, reclaiming the relationships that had fallen away due to his mental struggles. The people were not overjoyed with Jesus. They didn't know what to expect any longer from the once mentally ill man. They feared this new norm. Boy, we've heard that a lot. They feared the new norm. And so they demanded that Jesus leave and not cause any more transformations or restorations. Stop. They even continued to treat the healed man with fear and distrust. He no longer fit into that nice, neat box that they had put him in previously. But the healed man, if he stayed the course in his hometown like Jesus asked him to, would be the catalyst of deep and abiding change for the entire community. He was living proof that God was benevolent and could change all of their lives for the positive. For some, though, the thought of the possibility of transformation can still bring fear into their hearts. It's easier to cling to the things in life that seek to consume us, the demons, the troubles that we know, than to move into something that can and will affect unknown change in our lives. We may dream of and long for something different, for times where everyone gets along, where people are treated as people without malice or prejudice, where all things are shared and held in common, where there is no longer want, hunger, or homelessness, where healthcare is prevalent and available at reasonable rates, where everyone has life-giving work to perform and is able to support their families. We all long for this. But what we know and are already slogging our way through is easier to continue to deal with, even if it steals our joy and our energy, than to gather what little energy we have left and taking this leap into the unknown of agreeing to work for the changes we so deeply want and need. Positivity and change, restoration and wholeness begins one person at a time. Each one who experiences God's presence and healing is asked to share that experience so that others may learn to see, hear, and find their way into that same presence for themselves. And then they too will share their experiences, and so on and so on. And these ripples of possibility, of change, of transformation can be seen and make deep and abiding, positive, personal and communal transformation possible. Each week, we come here to this time and this place with these people gathered here seeking God's presence. We come hoping for a time to quiet the voices of the world, to allow our heart rates and our breathing to settle, to enter into a place where we can see, hear, and feel God's loving presence. We come seeking to be healed and to be restored in every way. We come seeking to be filled with the calmness and energy of God that will allow us to go back out into the world to face the cacophony of opposing voices and let them wash over us without letting them latch onto us and lead us astray. Because of our time here with God and one another, we are prepared to go out into the world, to do the work of sharing our experiences of God's presence and of inviting others to enter into it as well. As a result, we are helping to bring out the transformational change that only God's love makes possible. Each of us is critical in making this change possible. Blessed and immersed in God's love and grace, all things are possible. Thanks be to God. Amen. Please bow your hearts and minds in prayer with me this morning. Merciful and loving God, this morning the headlines continue to greet us with more violence and loss in our local area and in communities around us. Our hearts grieve with those who have lost loved ones in the past week, and some as recently as yesterday and overnight. May we never take for granted the gift of life of those whom we love, share our lives, and surround ourselves with on a daily basis. Today we also celebrate the life of our beloved Bill Kleindienst, the many fathers and fatherly figures in our lives, and Juneteenth, the Independence Day for those individuals of color who were enslaved within our country. We give you thanks and praise for those individuals who worked hard and paved the way for freedom of life, religion, and choice in our country, and all of those who continue to stand up for our freedoms today. While we know that there is a date for the official end of slavery, we recognize that many are still held within its grasp in many different forms: domestic violence, sexual trafficking victims, etc. May we never lose sight of the joys and costs of freedom, and may we be ever vigilant about seeking out where we see such abuse happening in our communities and country. Until every individual is free, God, unoppressed and unable to live and thrive in our country, we recognize that none of us are truly free. So God, we ask that you give us the courage and strength to fight for justice and freedom for all. We give you thanks for this beautiful world we live in. Today is just about as perfect of a day as we can ask for. Beautiful sunshine, blue skies, comfortable temperatures, time to worship you, time with family and friends to share with, and us, reveling in the midst of all of this. May we cherish each day as the gift it is from you. And most of all, we give you thanks for the ability and space to enter into your sheltering, loving, and refreshing presence. We humbly give you thanks and praise for the endless ways that you bless us and care for us each and every day. But most of all, for your deep and abiding love for us. With joyful hearts, we join our voices together, praying in the way that you taught us so long ago, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For yours is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Be zealous in shouting your praises to the Lord, remembering the strength of God's love and the promise of Christ's help. Let us share who we are as the church in the world with open arms. Let us join with one another as we express our faith through our gifts of love. Please join me in the prayer of dedication. Merciful God, you bring hope to the despairing, healing to the sick, and release from bondage to all who are oppressed by sin and evil. Through baptism into Christ, You cover us with your love. Direct our gifts to fulfill your purposes as we wait time when all creation is one in your love. By the grace of Jesus Christ and the community of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Well, friends, it is about that time where we prepare to depart from one another again, to leave this safe space that we have sheltered within. As we go, let us share a blessing together. In the spirit of God's unchanging love, live the stories of faith we have heard this day. In the melody of God's song within us, we sing the faith we have received. In the hope of God's unfailing help, share the grace we have been given. We will go and tell the world how much God has done for us. Know that you carry with you the blessing of God, Son, and Holy Spirit, now and always. Amen. Please be seated. Well, it's that time for us to go back out into the world and to enjoy this beautiful day. And as you go, remember that you carry a gift with you. We always pause one last time and remember that every time Jesus came into the presence and every time he left, especially those nearest and dearest, he offered them the amazing, transformational, and life-giving gift of God's peace. So may the peace of Christ be with each of you. Go in peace, have a wonderful week, and we will see you soon. I will be out from Thursday through Monday. I will be going to see Ken on his birthday, though. So I'll be out of the office, out of the sanctuary. You will have a guest next week. Her name is Spring. She was a MDiv student and worked with Eva up at Dover UCC. And so she is coming to share the word with you next Sunday. And I know it will be awesome. So please give her the great Hayshire welcome we always do. And I look forward to seeing you when I'm back. So take care, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon. Have a blessed week. Elementary school? Yeah, that's going to be not until August though, right? So you got a couple months yet. Are you looking forward to it? No.